Hi, you're watching Floyd Steinberg's YouTube channel. This is the Gamma mini synthesizer by This Is Noise, and I guess you're going to like this little synthesizer. So please join me for the next minutes in this video. Here we go. Okay, so the Gamma mini synth comes in this protective hard shell case, which is always nice to have. And inside we find the synth itself, USB cable, QR code for the online manual, and a sticker. Nice. Okay, here it is in all its glory. Let's zoom in a bit. The idea here is you can play chords and you can play lead, and every chord and every note you play is tied to the scale you've previously chosen in the menu. It's not possible to play notes outside the chosen scale. So you can never play misbehaving notes, but you also can never play jazzy tunes, obviously. Okay, let's turn this on. This is battery powered. We have a small screen here, we have loudspeakers here and on the back, and we have 4 potentiometers here for setting up things. We have one encoder here which is used for accessing the menu, and there are 2 joysticks which will modulate the sounds of the lead and of the chord. Both of these can be configured in the menu. Okay. Let's connect this to the Zoom R4 here, and then we'll just listen to some of the 30 preset patches built into the synth. This is the patch you're going to hear once you turn on this device. On this side you can play chords. And on this side you can play a lead sound. The potentiometers are used for adjusting the volume and the filter, but the behavior of these can be set up in the menu. We'll take a look at that soon. So that's volume. Filter, same thing on this side. The synth itself is covered in a thick sheet of plexiglass, which looks quite nice. The bottom part is made from, I guess, aluminum. It's some kind of metal. It feels really sturdy and cold to touch. This is a very nicely built device. Let's take a quick look at the synth engine. So for each of both sides, chords and melody, you can adjust the synth engine parameters. Do this by clicking the encoder, and then you can navigate the menu either with the encoder or with the joysticks. I found using the joysticks more comfortable and faster. If you push right, you can enter a menu, and if you push left, you can leave a menu. Let's enter the sound menu here. We can choose presets or scale. I'm using one of my user presets I've created. Let's take a look at each of the options here. So scale lets you choose between minor and major chords and other scales that are possible. This is major, minor, harmonic minor, I'll leave it at minor for this demonstration. Then we can choose the root note. At the moment this is C sharp, but of course you can set it to any note that's in the octave. And we can also choose the octave we're playing in: 4, 5. Let's stay at 4 though. We can also select the waveforms for each of the oscillators, and we can do this for notes and chords separately. Let's take a look at notes. Here we have 2 oscillators. we can choose from sine wave, triangle, saw wave, square wave, ramp, inverted triangle, or phase modified square wave. Let's leave that at triangle. Same thing is possible for the chords, as I already said, but here you have up to 8 oscillators simultaneously. We can also adjust the detune value for the chords. This is pretty out of tune now, let's bring it back to 1.5 again. Next is amplitude, which lets you select the amplitude for each of the oscillators individually. I'm not going to change that because I like what I created here. Then we have filters. We can turn them on or off, and we can adjust them for notes and chords separately. This is low pass, high pass. You can adjust the frequency and the resonance. Same thing is possible for the chords. I'm going to leave it where it is here. Then we can adjust envelopes. These are the classical attack, decay, sustain, release envelopes. So obviously this sounds more flute-like now. Then we have effects, also possible for both sides. We have chorus. We have glide. Then there's octave difference. That's the octave gap between the two oscillators used in the melody. Tremolo and vibrato. Sounds quite nice, I'll keep this. Then we can adjust how the pitch bend will affect the notes, up or down, and that's it. That's the synth engine. It's quite basic, but effective, I'd say. You can also use a hold function. Right, that was the synth engine. Let's take a look at the looper. You can access the looper by holding down the encoder for a second, but let's configure it first. So push down the encoder, then go to System, then go to Looper. And you can set up the loop length up to 32 notes, but yeah, let's use 8. We can configure a count-in, which is highly advisable because the firmware in its current state has a bug that you will see soon. We can turn on quantizing up to 16th notes, and we can capture all the filter movements or just the notes. And then you can start the looper right from here, but let's not do that. Let's go back and set up a metronome first. Unfortunately, at the moment, you can't set up the metronome to run only when recording. It will run all the time. But I've talked to the guys behind this project and they confirmed there will be a firmware update soon which will enable you to set up the metronome while you're running the looper. But for the moment, let's use it. Let's reduce the BPM just a bit. We can set up the time signature here. Now let's just start recording. And now take a look at the count-in. There's a problem there. Let's see if we can spot it. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. now you can start playing melodies over this. Okay, click to stop, and now you can hold this to clear the sequence or just go back here. And now let's turn off the metronome because this is really grating. Okay, system, metronome, off. Right, that's the looper. The looper is fun, but you've probably seen problems with the metronome, and the count-in will start at the position the internal sequencer is pointing at the moment. So if you're unlucky, the count-in will just be skipped because you're starting your recording right on the last second of the count-in, and then you stumble into the sequencer right away and don't have time to organize your thoughts. When you're watching this video, this might already be sorted out. The Gamma synth also can be used as a MIDI device, so it can receive notes and it can send notes, and you can set it up to be a MIDI controller using the knobs and the sticks, which you can assign CC values. Let's try this while I'm also opening the hidden developers menu, which has some interesting extra functionality. You can look up how to access this in the online manual. One thing you can set up here is the Moog ladder filter. So this is the usual filter. Okay, now let's use this filter. So, which one do you like better? There's an overdrive here, so let's take a look at that. I'll turn it on for the chords. So this is without overdrive, and this is with overdrive. Bit crusher. A wave folder. Sounds kind of nice. Frequency modulation mode. Okay, let's turn that on. So we can adjust the ratio. And the index. And that's the developers menu. I think there are some good ideas here, but to make full use of FM, for example, we needed to be able to adjust the envelopes for each oscillator on the chord section of this synth individually. One last thing you might have noticed is there is a Tamagotchi-like creature living in this synthesizer. So this tiny critter here will be happier if you use the synth more often. So it will grow and it will smile and wave at you. And it will be sad if you don't use the synth a lot. You can also set up the screen to show different effects. So we have this waveform here and we have the circles here. You can turn that on or off if you want to. That's the Gamma mini synth. The only complaint I have here is that there are firmware bugs, and those firmware bugs are not insignificant. For example, when I recorded a sequence for one of my demos in this video and pushed the sticks down, the chords and the melodies stayed on the lowered octave and I just couldn't move them back up again. The synth is mono, just add a guitar pedal if you want to have stereo effects. Other than that, this synth is fun. So I did a live stream with this a couple of days ago and the feedback from my viewership was very positive. The sound of this reminds of early video games from the late 80s, the early 90s. So playing these saw wave chords and square wave leads really takes you back there. Yep, and that's the Gamma synth. It's like an accordion, but with a Tamagotchi. So if you think this was a good YouTube video, please do the YouTube thing. Seeing those subscriber numbers grow makes me happy and keeps me motivated to push out another video next week. As always, thanks for watching and see you again next week. Bye bye.